Did the ancient Egyptians really have stargates? Many people believe the idea of stargates is fanciful because of the way they've been portrayed in our science fiction films and television shows. But ancient stargates do truly exist in Egypt, hidden right in plain sight. And there are so many of them. Hi, I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker, and I've been researching stargates in Egypt for several years now and co-host a Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour with Egyptologist Mohamed Ibrahim. Later, we'll get into what these stargates were used for, but first of all, how do we know they existed? We know because the ancient Egyptians labeled these gateways as such with the authority of specific kings. For example, here's Mohamed showing us an example of one of these stargates at the Open Air Museum at Karnak.
Come out or go in?
Go in.
This is as if this is the fifth dimension. So we are going out now. We are going to the third dimension.
There it is.
How we know it's a Stargate? Here it is. But this as a title was given to how many kings? 5 only. This is the name of King Senusert. King Senusert from Middle Kingdom. Okay, I didn't find any other king from Middle Kingdom has this title except this one. And then 4 kings from New Kingdom, including Hatshepsut. So what is my understanding? That he is telling us that this is yes a Stargate, I believe that, but he is the keeper of the Stargate. He is the one who knows the knowledge of the Stargate, how to activate. Because if you trust me, this is the Stargate. But we don't feel anything, but feel the same. Why the same? Because I'm not ready. I don't have this title. It's the physical gate, but I need to have the title also. I need to have the abilities. Okay? So that is what is happening for us. So many things are happening in front of our eyes now, but we don't see it, we don't smell it, we don't feel it, because our abilities are stuck with this reality, with this dimension. So we are playing according to the rules of this dimension.
Now, on either side of that gateway, you will find the specific hieroglyphs for Stargate and the king it's associated with, in this case, Senusert III. There are several ways in which Stargate was depicted in the hieroglyphic language, but they all have the same basic premise. In a recent interview Mohamed and I had with Trevor Grassi on his channel, we broke all of this down. Here's a clip of it, but I do encourage you to go back and watch the entire interview.
This is basically the hieroglyphs for Stargate at the Temple of Seti in Abydos. On either side of the doorway, there's Mohamed and I there on one of the tours pointing at those hieroglyphs. So yeah, there's a lot of different variations.
The first one we saw earlier, that was what I can call it the official title Stargate. This is different. We can see a shape of a gate a little bit different from the previous one. It's more like 2D tunnel.
This is more of a pictogram rather than actually spelling the name out. I would say more of an illustration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is now a picture. Yes, it's not a symbol, it's a picture.
If you look at the top line above, you actually see the star over the gate right in the middle of that top line above each of the larger gates.
Exactly. They make this in case you miss the meaning. So they tell you, be careful. This shape is a Stargate. Don't forget.
It's a redundancy to prove what some of the hieroglyphs, they have a glyph called a determinative glyph, which is not part of the phonetic spelling of a word, but that comes with a word in order to give you a second confirmation of its meaning.
That's basically what the star and the gate are, because the phonetics are the folded sheet, the S at the beginning, and then the foot and the B in the middle.
Exactly. The star is an extra symbol to make sure this is, we read it Saba.
And then the little lines there for those watching at home, those 3 lines there are the ones that make this plural, Stargates.
Exactly.
And yet another little variation, I put the Edfu one in here. That's Great Stargate, correct, Mohamed?
Exactly. This is something big. This is another level of Stargates, leads to maybe huge system or way beyond our universe to another place. So they give it the name Great Stargate.
The hieroglyphic language is primarily phonetic, and that is in part how Champollion was finally able to crack the code in 1822. Now, in this specific case, we are reading this from right to left. We have the folded sheet, which is the Egyptian letter for S, and the foot, which is the Egyptian letter for B. The ancient Egyptians didn't use vowels in their words until the Greeks came along and threw a couple in so they could spell some of their words. But it's understood through the Coptic language, which is a descendant of the ancient Egyptian language, that in English, you would add a couple of A's to this word and you would pronounce it as Saba, S-A-B-A. Now, what about the other two symbols here, the star and the gate? Those are what we call determinatives, glyphs that are included sometimes to help us understand what the word actually is. Here, very plainly, we have Stargate. There are other shorthanded ways to write this as well, such as a simple star and a gate without the phonetics. We also find in some cases Great Stargate, as well as multiples like Stargates or hundreds of Stargates. We find an even different variation at the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, in a room on the roof that's in the opposite corner from the one which contains the Dendera zodiac. Dendera is just one of many temples that contain the Stargate symbolism.
And what made me to make sure that this is the Stargate, here is the word written Stargate in the middle. So last year I was explaining this story exactly to Mike and the other group, and Mike told me, what about looking to the other side?
We're outside.
Didn't see this one. Oh, this is too much.
It keeps going.
Right, and the other wall. See,
Yeah.
we didn't see this before.
Right around the other side.
I was telling this story for 7 years without asking this question. What about the other side? So we found more Stargates in this side and in that side.
Actually, this here is also Stargate. Right there.
This is the address. This is where you will go.
I didn't get a good recording of Mohamed talking about it as we were walking up the stairs to get up here. But on the right-hand side, as you're walking up, there's a procession of people with what we would call offerings and other items that they're bringing up here. And then on the left-hand side, there's a procession coming back down. This is indicative of we are bringing things to the Stargate. We're going to bring things that pass through the Stargate, perform that ceremony. And then, of course, when it's all done, you come back down.
We made good discovery, my friend.
Absolutely.
We saw Karnak earlier, but there are several examples of Stargates throughout the Karnak complex. We find examples at Luxor, where Thutmose III is described as the Lord of the Pleiades.
So we saw the title Saba.
Yeah.
And
And
it is
great.
great.
Yeah.
Saba, great Stargate. But when we read from here, his life of Horus, the powerful. Okay, we may have a kind of a meaning for this, but we care more about this. This word is Nebu Golden, great Pleiades power.
Okay.
So as if they are telling us the great Stargate is leading to somewhere. And this is the destination name.
Pleiades.
But we must pay attention to something. The name of the king.
At Abydos, we find 3 Stargates within the Hall of Osiris.
So yesterday we have seen the word Stargate in Karnak Temple. Now we will see the word Stargate in Abydos Temple. Sab, and Sab means star and the simple gate. And in the same way, Stargate, 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 Stargate. So if this was just a title, why we don't see it everywhere next to the name of the king? Why in certain places? Because this is the Stargate, not the other location.
And we find 2 Stargates within the Hall of Ptah Soker, where we also find descriptions of the ingestion of monatomic white gold cakes before they entered the Stargate chambers.
This is what we call it the Mafkut. As I told you earlier, I never deny any story 100%, even if I am not convinced. And suddenly I realized the writings under that word here. So you can see again, this is the symbol called Mafkut. And this symbol is called shait, Hatshepsut, white cake. They say that they eat the white gold to have these powers like netters. So it could be white cake. It's only a different way to call it. Look, Mufkut's still wrong.
Didn't you say Mufkut is turquoise?
Turquoise.
Yeah.
So for sure it's turquoise, but I know why it is called Mufkut now. Because most of the white shahid or the white powder was found in Mufkut land in Sinai.
Okay.
In the turquoise land. That's why it got this name.
So that's where it's from.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
And while there are many other temples throughout Egypt that contain this Stargate symbolism, for me, the absolute epitome of a Stargate is that of Hatshepsut's mortuary temple. And it starts with serpentine energy, that universal symbol of energy throughout the ancient world.
We see here beautifully carved falcon. But what's interesting about this piece is look along the backside, the railing up the stairs. What does that look like to you? Did I hear somebody say snake? Yeah, snake tail. This may not be the actual original carving. This may have been recarved from a snake, maybe a cobra, but when you have that snake energy running up, you have a perfect picture of energy running up to inside the temple. And when we get up there, we'll see more of that Stargate symbolism, and then it goes straight up into the Holy of Holies. Off on the side here, you see these ruins back here. This is the base of an ancient pyramid. And it could be that pre-Diluvians built a pyramid here, and then the dynastics coming in later took the ruins and built a temple. So you have a pyramid harnessing energy here. You have the snakes bringing the energy up into the temple there, and we'll see when we go inside why they're doing that.
Where you want to get to at Hatshepsut's temple is the Holy of Holies, which is straight back into the side of the cliff. As you walk up the grand staircase, flanked by that serpentine energy, you pass through a large gateway into an inner courtyard, and that gateway is labeled as a Great Stargate.
Here the star and the word gate, but here it doesn't say just Stargate, it says Great Stargate.
Now through that courtyard, you still continue heading straight back into a hall that is known as the Bark Hall, or the Transportation for the Gods. Now again, on either side of this doorway, again is labeled Stargate. So as you travel through the Transportation for the Gods, you end up in the Holy of Holies. And there, on the right-hand side of the wall, is this fantastic depiction of a cartouche filled with stars, the only known examples so far in all of Egypt. To me, this is the ultimate symbol of a Stargate. It's incredible symbolism of the Stargate's connection to other realms. And on the way back down the grand staircase, you have an amazing view across the Nile, and straight on a line from the Holy of Holies at Hatshepsut's temple is the Holy of Holies at Karnak. Imagine this grand procession walking down this staircase, flanked by those two giant snakes coming out of the Stargate, headed toward Karnak. These Stargates were grander than we can imagine. Now, in most cases, you'll find this symbolism on the sides of doorways and gateways into temples and into chambers within these temples, which we call the Stargate chambers. But there are some cases in which we find this symbolism elsewhere within the text or stories on the wall. And at the Temple of Horus at Edfu, we find the Stargate symbolism very prominently throughout the extensive texts that are on the wall throughout the temple. Now, why is this significant to find the story there? Because the texts at Edfu give us a glimpse of the story of Atlantis, or what the ancient Egyptians called the homeland of the primeval ones.
Interpretation of the text is the island of the primeval ones. And it's very, very similar to the details that we have in the Atlantis story. Like we were talking about yesterday, the Atlantis story as is written that we have is from Plato. Well, Plato got it from Solon, which was his great-great uncle a couple hundred years down the road. And Solon had come down here to Egypt, the Temple of Sais. We saw that photo of that ruined temple. So we no longer have the original text from there. Solon had gone there, talked to a priest named Sanchi, studied under him for a long period of time, and brought the story back to Greece with him. So, of course, the Egyptians, they like to tell their stories and spread their word. So this was a place when they built Edfu where they could record their history. And I believe they knew that there was something that was going to happen to their culture, that it was going to get lost. So they covered this temple with so much of their information, but they couldn't record every single detail, which is why we don't have the full story, but we have it in part up here of those, what they call the primeval ones. Like Ahmed was saying that, they've kind of deified them as gods. They could have been people that came, and their island was destroyed like Atlantis with water and fire and was completely lost. And then they had to survive and find a new land to rebuild their civilization. So when we see some of these, the pyramids and repurposing of these really, really old buildings, that was a part of that lost culture that they were rediscovering again and repurposing. Because Atlantis, the story that we see here as well, it wasn't just one island, it wasn't just one place, it was a worldwide culture. That was like the capital that we were seeing here getting destroyed. And it's really just a glimpse of that Atlantis story in part. Wish we could find, the bigger story, if we could find something under Sais, but like you said, they've it sounds like they stopped excavating there if it's become covered over again. Maybe find some lost scrolls or something. But this is it in part up here. The Zep-Tepi, the first time, is what they call it.
At this point, we have 6 known Stargate kings. Kaba from the Old Kingdom, Senusret III from the Middle Kingdom, and from the New Kingdom, Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, Seti I, and Ramses II. There may be more, and we just haven't found the designation yet. For example, Amenemhat III was the son of Senusret III, and they co-ruled together for 20 years. So most likely, Amenemhat III knew all about the Stargates, but we haven't yet found the Stargate symbolism along with his cartouche. Additionally, we know that turquoise mining was prominent during his reign, and we've made those connections of the monatomic white gold cakes from turquoise land in the Sinai in use at Stargates. We find 2 of these kings, Hatshepsut and Thutmose III, playing a significant role on the legendary Elephantine Island, a massive granite outcropping in the middle of the Nile River. This is where, if you believe the story of the Ark of the Covenant making its way down to Ethiopia, that the Ark would have stayed for about 400 years. The cave temple where it said it was housed is still there under the temple of Satet, but I've been asked not to share those photos and videos. Some believe the Ark of the Covenant is still hidden on the island somewhere. Where our Stargate kings come into play is in the construction of the temples on Elephantine Island. Hatshepsut built the Temple of Khnum on the top of the hill, and the Temple of Satet at the bottom of the hill. Thutmose III also contributed to the construction and added on to the Temple of Satet. Now, admittedly, we don't find Stargate symbolism here, but how can we? The entire Temple of Khnum was blown away, except for one gate. And it's from that gate in which it seems a force blew right through it and knocked the entire temple down.
Okay, here we are in front of possibly a Stargate. We don't see the symbolism on here, but it's the only thing still standing of this temple. And when we go back there, see some of the massive granite blocks that are back there, heavy, multiple tons. It's like a massive force blew right through here and knocked everything over, through the Stargate. Just knocked over like it was nothing. So imagine, okay, you have the gate back there, and whatever happened, a force blows through and just topples it all over.
If this had been a Stargate, did the ancient Egyptians anger the beings on the other side of the gate who blew this force right through the gate and knocked down their temple as some sort of retaliation? Or was the Stargate simply misused and misfired, so to speak, causing the temple's destruction? It's hard to say. Is there anything else that can tell us if this was a Stargate? Well, just behind both temples is the remains of an ancient pyramid. Again, I've been asked not to share the photos and videos of this particular pyramid, and I don't want to get our tour guide Mohamed in trouble. Remember, we saw the ruins of a pyramid at Hatshepsut's mortuary temple, so we know that Hatshepsut liked to use the pyramids in conjunction with her stargates, possibly to power them up. An Elephantine island being made of granite, which has an extremely high quartz content, would have been a massive conductor of electromagnetic energy that the pyramid would have been harnessing. But what might really tell this is a Stargate is down in the temple of Satet, in which we find a depiction of Satet wearing a strange headdress from some other distant land.
It does have that resemblance to a Mayan headdress. So then we have to ask the question, what is this style doing here? Well, we're talking about a Stargate just up the hill. So you can put pieces together and start to draw a story. Were they utilizing Stargates to go to the Americas and incorporate some of that culture here, or meeting people that were wearing these type of headdresses? We see connections back to other parts of the world where you see, okay, you look at the step pyramid, oh, it looks like a lot like Chichen Itza. Were they able to exchange that technology using Stargates, like what may be up here? Also, you'll notice that it's a different color than some of the other blocks here. That's because that is not the original block. The original block was removed from here. It's in the Louvre, and you'll see several of those around the temple like that. I was at the Louvre last year just before coming here and was checking out their Egyptian section, and it's like half of this temple is there in the Louvre. It's pretty crazy.
And we have Mayan crown over the head of one of the Egyptian knitters called Satet. And even if you can look to the facial features, that type of South American style, the nose and the lips, okay? So this reed crown is definitely Mayan crown. But shall we call it Mayan crown? No, because in my opinion that it was one huge civilization at the early beginning. So maybe some of the priests who left Egypt and went to South America, they created a civilization there which looks like the same civilization they used to practice here in Egypt. What she is doing, she is giving a necklace to the king. So that is the necklace of protection. So she is giving the necklace to the king to protect himself, but from what? From getting exposed to any excessive energy, unwanted energy.
Was that one of the functions of Stargates, to not necessarily traverse the cosmos, but to actually travel to distant lands across the Earth? Intergalactic travel, of course, is the first thing that comes to mind when we think of Stargates. It's in so much of our science fiction. In a recent episode of Connecting the Universe, I broke down the connection between Stargates, portals, and intergalactic travel.
So, a Stargate really is an intelligent being's ability, not necessarily human, but intelligent being's ability to harness the power and technology of a portal and to use it at their will. We've talked a lot in the past about portals, what exactly portals are. Portals are naturally occurring. The ability to harness that and do with it what you want. To go to, we're going to get into these different things, other places in the cosmos, other places on Earth, etc., etc. The ability for an intelligent being to harness that and use it like that, that makes a portal a Stargate. So we have to start with, of course, the Einstein-Rosen bridge. Albert Einstein, Nathan Rosen devised this idea. You have two different distant points in space. Can't get to them as humans because we just don't have the resources and we don't have the lifespan to do it. But we want to get there from one to the other. How do we do that? Well, if we are able to bend space and time, and that's the trick. How do we bend space and time? Somehow. We don't have the technology ourselves yet, but if we were to bend space and time and bring those 2 points closer to each other, we could connect them with a tunnel and be able to travel much, much quicker than the average bear. Here's the thing about this. People have that vision in their mind of the tunnel that they're going to travel through. And we have depicted this in a lot of science fiction, whether it's Star Wars, Stargate, Contact, all of these types of films. And it's always the tunnel. The thing is, a circle is a two-dimensional object, right? That opening. A circle in three-dimensional space is a spherical hole. So this is more along the lines of what we would be looking for to try to find, okay, where do we actually have stargates? Where do we have portals? It would actually be something spherical in nature rather than just a giant hole. Portals in the wilderness. Is it going to be a giant hole that's just standing in front of you on the path? No, it's probably going to be, well, not necessarily that. That might be what we find out in space. But on the path out in the wilderness, your spherical hole is going to be something more like that. So your glowing ball of light, some sort of plasmoid. So very well could be that the balls of light that people were seeing like this were actually the portals or stargates to enter into our world.
Is some sort of plasmoid or giant ball of light what ancient Egyptians saw within their stargates or stargate chambers when they were in use? Did they simply just walk into the ball of light to travel to wherever they were going? Is that why today so many people have witnessed UFOs entering and exiting giant balls of light in the sky? Perhaps. And yes, they could use it to travel the cosmos, but they could also use stargates to travel to somewhere else on Earth. This connection in the ancient world could be why we see pyramids like the pyramid at Chichen Itza and the step pyramid at Saqqara look so similar. That could also be why we find so much similar symbolism across the world, such as the spirals, the handbags, the pine cones, and so much more. These stargates could also be used for interdimensional travel. Our theoretical physics show us that we have up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions, 0 through 10. We're currently living in the 4th dimension, which we call time. There are other worlds within those dimensions above our own, living right alongside us, in which stargates could give us access. If a stargate can traverse dimensions, and one of those dimensions is time, does that mean a stargate could be used to travel through time? Yes. Stack time theory is beyond the scope of this video, but those other dimensions above ours would view time in much the same way that we view and can handle a 3D object, having access to it all, past, present, and future. Was a stargate just for physical travel, or was there also a consciousness component to this? Were the stargate chambers places where people could go to enter altered states of being and project their consciousness to other locations? Also, a stargate could be used for simply communication. One doesn't have to walk through a stargate to just talk to somebody on the other side of it. We've even seen this today in our modern science. Back in 2022, scientists at Fermilab created a baby wormhole in the lab, and the first thing they did, they sent a message through. Communication. The big question, of course, is how do we activate it? Can Egypt's stargates still be used today? Egypt's monuments, while still very gorgeous, are really just a shell of their former selves. So much is missing, and I think we need more information. Sure, it seems that ingesting monatomic white gold was a part of the process at some of these stargates, and there are people today that are making a form of this white gold. But are they using the correct alchemical process that the ancient Egyptians did? We really don't know. Since everything in this universe comes down to energy, frequency, and vibration, did ingesting that monatomic white gold set a frequency within the human so that when they walked into the Stargate chamber, that they were going to be headed to the right place, whatever that might be? Was there perhaps even a sound component to this? Some sort of maybe chanting or a musical instrument that was played along with entering the Stargate chamber to help enhance or set that frequency that was used? Did there also need to be some sort of correct celestial alignment in the sky, or the correct time of day perhaps? We find throughout Egypt all kinds of material and inscriptions relating to the heavens and the stars and the moon and the sun. It's everywhere, and that could be part of the key to making these stargates work. These are things we still don't know, but unlocking the mysteries is one of the reasons why I keep going back to Egypt. And whenever I'm on tour with Mohamed, it seems we're always making new discoveries that shed light on the fascinating stargates of ancient Egypt.
We made good discovery, my friend.
Absolutely.